Hello everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel of Uncle Ba Dewey's Ghost Stories. I hope you have an exciting time listening to ghost stories. Before you start, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support Dewey. Thank you very much. Let's begin with the first story of today's collection. This story was sent by a girl who mentioned it happened when she was 18 years old. That year, she heard that her best friend was pregnant. So she and her boyfriend decided to visit her friend in the countryside. At that time, her friend was still studying. Let's call this friend Mai. When she heard that Mai was still in school and pregnant, she was quite surprised. However, since Mai was pregnant, she had to accept it and went to visit her friend. Before going, she texted Mai to ask how things were. Mai replied that her mother was planning to force her to have an abortion and wouldn't let her keep the baby. The next day, she arrived at Mai's house intending to take Mai out. Mai had asked her to take her to find a job because she didn't want to stay at home, fearing her parents would force her to have an abortion. However, when she arrived at Mai's house, she waited for about an hour, calling Mai, but Mai didn't answer. It was late, so she went home. She thought Mai might be busy or out on errands. The following day, Mai texted her saying she couldn't contact her because her parents had taken her to have an abortion. Mai added that her parents didn't let her see the baby and buried it somewhere without telling her where. Accepting the truth that the baby was gone, she and Mai had to move on. A week later, she returned to Hanoi to continue working. During this time, every time she returned to her room, she felt uneasy, as if someone was watching her, even though there were many people in the room. Initially, she thought it was just a psychological change. However, after a few days, she felt anxious whenever she talked to people, especially the women in the room. She felt like someone was playing with her hair, as if someone was standing behind her, touching her head. Feeling quite uncomfortable, she would turn around to see if anyone was teasing her. But there was never anyone there. This feeling continued for days until a colleague invited her to Tan Hoa for a memorial service. She stayed overnight at her colleague's house. That night, she experienced sleep paralysis for the first time. She had never experienced it before, so she didn't know what it felt like. While sleeping, she saw a dark figure sitting on her, feeling like her nose and mouth were being tightly squeezed, unable to breathe. Being her first experience, she had no idea how to handle it, neither praying nor reciting scriptures. She endured it until she managed to sit up. However, it kept happening repeatedly about 4 or 5 times that night. She noticed that each time she was paralyzed. She saw 2 dark figures outside the room door, one tall and one short, resembling an adult and a child. The next day, she returned to Hanoi and shared her experience with colleagues, asking if they knew any good spiritual masters to consult. Eventually, she was referred to a well-known spiritual master. Upon visiting the master, she was told that she had a male spirit and a child spirit following her. The master asked if she had ever witnessed an abortion or visited someone who had an abortion recently. She admitted that she had visited a friend who had an abortion a month ago, but did not witness the procedure. The master explained that although she didn't see it, her connection with the child led them to follow her for a month. The master revealed that the child spirit was a girl who followed her after the abortion. The master offered to help her, but could only remove the child's spirit. After the ritual, she was advised not to return home for 3 days and to stay at a hotel instead. During those 3 days, after 3 days, she returned to the spiritual master, asking if the ritual was complete. The master confirmed that the child spirit was gone, but advised her to visit her hometown to consult her mother's spiritual master for the adult spirit. There was no solution from that teacher. So you decided to go back to your hometown to ask your mother to handle the spirit of the adult. Everything was resolved, and you managed to release those 2 spirits. After that, you discovered you were pregnant, and it was also the time when you and your boyfriend got married. On the first day at your husband's house, nothing significant happened until the second night. When you slept there, you experienced sleep paralysis again. It felt like your body was completely stiff and you couldn't feel anything. You knew what it was because you had experienced sleep paralysis before. You were so scared that you turned to hug your husband, but the heaviness on your body persisted, and you still felt the presence on top of you. Despite hugging your husband, the entity remained. You recited Buddhist chants a lot, but alongside your chanting, you heard a woman's laughter. Although you could turn over, you couldn't open your eyes until you finally managed to do so and saw a shadow of a woman on the ceiling. Not a full figure, just a shadow. In that situation, there was nothing you could do. You didn't want to wake your husband, who was sleeping, so you just buried your face into him and fell asleep, as you were quite exhausted, being pregnant. The next morning, you told your father-in-law, who suggested it might be the spirit of Aunt 2, who was just playing around, as he explained that in the past, at your husband's grandmother's house, there were 2 aunts who died young, but the reason for their deaths was unknown. Your father-in-law quickly went out to burn incense and asked the 2 aunts to let you sleep peacefully, since you were now part of the family. The following day, he also bought some fruit to offer to the aunts, and after that, you no longer experienced any strange occurrences. This is just one short story of yours. You also shared another story told by your grandparents that happened about 20 years ago. This story, according to you, was even reported in the newspapers. It happened in Tan Son District, Phu Hovin. The victim in this story was a woman named Mrs. Min. As you mentioned, Mrs. Min was the eldest in a family of 5 siblings. At that time, all of her siblings had their own families and lived separately, leaving only Mrs. Min to take care of their elderly parents. However, on that day, for some unknown reason, Mrs. Min had a conflict with her family members, so she packed her belongings and left the house. 3 days after she left, her family searched for her but couldn't find her, so they reported her missing to the police. Meanwhile, in another village in the same area, on Cock Mountain, locals discovered the charred remains of a creature they thought was a chimpanzee. When the villagers went up there, they found a completely burned creature, and they didn't know why it was burned. However, they took the remains back to make medicinal paste because they believed it was very nutritious. The village chief described the creature as having a hunched back, curled hands, and long nails, resembling a burned chimpanzee. Despite being charred, it looked very much like a chimpanzee seen on TV. They brought it back, removed the bones, and prepared to cook it into a paste. After cooking for about 3 days, the paste condensed to about 1 kilogram. Normally, animal bone paste turns black, but this paste turned out red, like blood. The villagers didn't pay much attention to this, thinking it was rare, and quickly put it in a jar to soak in alcohol. When they drank it, the taste was unbearable, with a strong, unpleasant smell. They didn't realize the paste was made from human bones. The suspicion arose when one of the men involved in making the paste noticed something odd after drinking the alcohol. He reported it to the police to test whether the bones were from a chimpanzee. Upon investigation, the police discovered it wasn't chimpanzee bones. They further investigated the site where the remains were found and discovered a shirt button and a hairpin. After confirming the DNA was human, the police contacted Mrs. Min's family to return a bag containing a skull, paste, bones, buttons, and a hairpin. Receiving these items was heartbreaking for the family, but they still didn't understand why Mrs. Min went to Cock Mountain or if she was murdered and burned. There was also a detail that before Mrs. Min left home, she wore 2 earrings, but when the bones were returned, the earrings, valued at 2 gold taels, were missing. The story concluded with the villagers being shocked to realize they had consumed alcohol soaked with human bones. The next story the female narrator shared happened around 2010 to 2011. Her maternal uncle, her mother's younger brother, was still living with them at that time. Your uncle was still quite young, only 25 years old. That year, he fell in love with a girl who was born in the year of the tiger. After they had been together for some time, they planned to get married. Before the wedding, your grandmother consulted a fortune teller to see if their ages were compatible and to choose an auspicious wedding date. The fortune teller said their ages and astrological signs were not compatible. He warned that if they got married, something bad might happen, even suggesting that marrying could lead to a tragic event the following year. Despite the warning, since they were in love, they decided to proceed with the wedding. The bride's family was wealthy, but known to be stingy, yet they insisted on a grand wedding. On the day of the wedding, A mishap occurred when the best man mistakenly got into the wedding car before the groom, causing a commotion. This was seen as a bad omen by some family members. During the wedding, your mother noticed that one of the large ceremonial candles on the groom's side was flickering and almost went out, while the bride's candle burned brightly. This was unsettling to her. After the wedding, your uncle and aunt had a child. Your uncle started working at a motorcycle shop where he was well-liked by the owner, which made a co-worker named Tang envious. Tang secretly resented your uncle and one day invited him out for drinks. On their way home, Tang's associates ambushed your uncle, causing him to crash his motorbike. Unfortunately, another vehicle couldn't stop in time and ran over him, resulting in his death. The news was devastating for your family. Your mother had a dream in which she saw your uncle crying bitterly. That night, a fruit basket left at the altar mysteriously fell, and the fruit inside rotted overnight, which was seen as a sign of your uncle's unrest. The family called a spiritual medium to the crash site to help guide your uncle's spirit home. During the ritual, the medium claimed your uncle's spirit had entered him, but the family was skeptical, thinking it might be a trick. The spirit was released until the moment it entered the medium, who then spoke to your grandmother. The medium said, "Mom, don't you remember me? Yesterday, I was a butterfly that landed on your cheek and kissed you." At that point, your grandmother believed because indeed a butterfly had landed on her cheek the previous day. This was something the medium couldn't have known from inside the house. Your mother also didn't believe initially, so she pretended to ask the medium, "Do you know who I am?" The medium replied, "You're Knock, my sister." Then your mother asked, "These past few days, I've been offering food to you. Were you able to eat?" The spirit responded, "I could eat, but it was difficult." Your mother asked further, "When you passed, I released fish and snails for you. Did it help?" The spirit replied, "It helped a lot. If you hadn't done that, I would have been very tired down there." At that moment, the spirit told your mother, "That day, I saw your husband drinking at a bar with many women. I told you to go get him, but you only went to Hung Vong Bridge and returned." Your mother remembered that it was true because she had intended to go find your father. But when she reached Hung Vong Bridge, she decided to return home instead of looking for him further. Before the spirit left the medium's body, your mother advised, "Please listen to Buddhist scriptures and prepare for reincarnation." Indeed, after some time, every day when your mother offered food, she would turn off the chanting machine until the offering was complete, then turn it back on. During that time, she often dreamed of seeing your uncle wearing a white school uniform, as if he were attending school. Each time, he would say, "I'm going to study now." On the day the spirit entered the medium's body, it visited your house to talk to your mother, then went to his wife's house to speak with her one last time. He said, "I must go now. Our fate has ended." After the spirit left, your child would cry every night, refusing to be soothed. The spirit told his wife, "Our child cries a lot at night. Go to the closet. You forgot to put one of my shirts in the coffin. Lay it out in the center of the room and let our child sleep on it." His wife did this, and the child stopped crying at night, sleeping peacefully after nursing. While they loved each other dearly when he was alive, shortly after his death, his wife quickly moved on, meeting someone new within a month and possibly remarrying. On her second wedding day, she even invited your parents, which was puzzling since she had grieved intensely when he passed. On the day of your child's first month celebration, held at his wife's house, your uncle's old phone unexpectedly played a recording where he asked his parents to name his child Su. This scared his wife, who ran outside, exclaiming, "He's back." Everyone was frightened, and the phone was either kept or discarded. The person named Tang, who orchestrated the accident that led to your uncle's death, eventually confessed and offered to support the child until age 18, hoping for forgiveness. The family didn't specify if they accepted the money but said, "It's too late now. Everyone must bear their own actions." On that day, the spirit entered a family member and said, "The person who pushed my bike will suffer the same fate, getting hit by a vehicle at the same spot." Later, it came true. Tang was terrified, and about a year later, a young man was hit by a vehicle at the same location, suffering similar injuries. Regarding Tang, you don't know his current whereabouts. Next is a story about a curse witnessed by a female friend, which remains unresolved by any spiritual leader. This occurred recently in Bien Hoa, Dong Nai, involving a group of 7 close friends aged 17 to 20. The events began with the first death in the group, a young man named Fu, who died in a traffic accident, leaving his family heartbroken because he was so young. Fu passed away on April 12, 2022. Everything seemed normal until a conflict arose between Pu's friends and another group. This other group was known for being quite tough. After the incident, Pu's group of 6 friends ended up in a fight, overpowering the other group completely, even knocking them into a nearby field. After the fight, the opposing group left angrily. That night, one of Pu's friends dreamt of Pu warning him not to take a certain route to school the next day. Despite the warning, Not took the same path and was ambushed by the other group, resulting in serious injuries that required 2 weeks of hospitalization. Upon discharge, Not shared his dream, but soon felt breathless again and was rushed back to the hospital, where he passed away on May 17, 2022, just a month after Pu. Truck, another member of the group, lived near a chemical plant and had respiratory issues due to exposure. He was hospitalized, and despite feeling weak, he removed his oxygen mask and passed away on May 23, 2022. His family found him lifeless, and his death added to the growing fear among the group as 3 members had died within a month. Another friend attended Truck's funeral. On his way home, he hit a pothole while cycling, lost control, and crashed into a tree, dying en route to the hospital. The next day, Nan, who was isolated due to severe COVID-19, suffered a heart attack and died in the hospital, marking the 5th death in the group of 7. The remaining 2 friends, Fong and Kang, were terrified. They consulted with spiritual advisors who dismissed the deaths as mere coincidences. Fong, feeling anxious, communicated with Kang before going to sleep. He seemed normal, but later played birthday songs and cut his wrist, dying from blood loss in his room. Kang discovered Fong's body the next morning. Kang, the last surviving member, shared his fears with his family and friends, experiencing a series of unfortunate events, including narrowly avoiding a falling plant pot. On a night in late May, King texted his friend, feeling uneasy. His family later recounted a shocking incident that occurred that night. I no longer keep in touch with Kang. Both of us just drifted apart after that day. I didn't contact Kang either, so I had no idea what was going on with him. It was only a few days later that I heard people saying Kang had committed suicide. He had died. I went to his house, and his family told me that the night he died was the same night I had been chatting happily with him. Before going to sleep, Kang left a letter, like a farewell note before taking his own life. After that, Kang committed suicide, but when I asked how, his family didn't reveal the details. They wanted to keep it a secret. Honestly, I felt very heartbroken. First, the loss of Kang, my friend. We were talking just that day, and it wasn't until much later that I found out he was gone. In those days, we hadn't been in touch at all. I'm also unsure if this incident was truly a case of a bad omen or if there's more to the story. But until now, no one has been able to explain this case. This is a story from Dong Nai, and our story ends here. Before we conclude, don't forget to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel to support it. If you found this story interesting, feel free to leave a comment below for everyone to see. Now let's look forward to more great stories in the future. Goodbye, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel Ghost Stories with Uncle Ba Dway. I hope you have a thrilling time listening to today's ghost story. Before diving into the tale, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Dway is very grateful to everyone. Before we start today's story, let's begin today's story. The first tale is shared by a young man who described it as the most terrifying experience of his life. It happened during a time when he was wandering on Hai Van Pass back in 2018. At that time, he was dating a girl whom we will call Gwen. They had a very innocent relationship, having not done anything intimate. However, after getting to know each other better, they began engaging in a romantic relationship. Shortly after they became intimate, Gwen informed him that she was pregnant. She asked him to take her to the doctor for a prenatal checkup to see how old the fetus was. When they visited the doctor, they discovered that the fetus was already 28 days old. However, he remembered that they had been intimate only 15 days ago. So how could the doctor say the fetus was 28 days old? Gwen must have conceived before they were intimate. After receiving the results, he felt something was off. He then invited Gwen to a cafe to discuss the matter clearly. He said, "I feel something is amiss about this situation. This is very strange because we only became intimate 15 days ago. So how could this pregnancy have appeared 28 days ago?" However, since everything has already happened, he suggested that if I keep the baby, he will support and protect me until I give birth. After that, we can have a DNA test. If the child is his, we will get married. If I don't agree with this plan, he suggested I terminate the pregnancy. Upon hearing this, Gwen immediately told him to go ahead with the termination. Yet after some thought, Gwen hesitated and suggested they flip a coin to decide. If it lands on heads, they would keep the baby. If tails, they would terminate. The coin landed on heads, but ultimately, Gwen decided to go through with the termination. If both agreed to terminate, it implies they would likely cut ties, as the baby might not be his since it appeared 28 days ago. Eventually, he took her to the hospital for the procedure, which incurred many costs, including tests, the abortion, and treatment for her post-surgery infection. After taking her to the hospital and paying the fees, he rode his bike to a bridge, leaving his bag with valuables behind, contemplating jumping off. As he stood on the edge, people noticed and shouted. In that brief moment, he reconsidered, recalling stories of those who committed suicide and the belief that they wouldn't reincarnate and spirits might drag him down. This thought made him shiver, and he began to pray. Miraculously, he floated to the surface after jumping into the river, deciding he didn't want to die. Luckily, he could swim and made it ashore, noticing eerie altars along the riverbank. Once ashore, people on the bridge asked if he was okay, to which he replied he was fine, and they dispersed. Reflecting on his survival, he attributed it to the two spirits at a nearby shrine he had once offered gifts to, believing they saved him. After this near-death experience, he moved to Danang to continue working, regaining some spirit. However, his job stagnated, and he began to suspect his ex-girlfriend might have cursed him. Over time, he became increasingly troubled, unable to sleep, and reliant on sleeping pills, consuming up to 12 pills just to sleep for a few hours. This led to hallucinations and addiction. Local pharmacies refused to sell him more pills, fearing he might attempt suicide. Desperate, he searched for any place willing to sell him the medication. Due to your condition, they don't sell sleeping pills, only mild tranquilizers. However, after purchasing these tranquilizers, you find you still can't sleep because they're not the high-dose sleeping pills you're used to. So, you stay awake and end up taking even more. You consume 2 boxes at once, wishing only to die peacefully in your sleep, to quickly leave this world and all its worries behind. After ingesting a large amount of these tranquilizers, you still can't sleep. Instead, you experience severe stomach pain and nausea, eventually vomiting some of the medication. After vomiting, you decide to leave your rented room, telling the owner you're moving out and start wandering the streets. You feel as if someone else is controlling you, aimlessly drifting like a mad person. This marks the beginning of your journey. After leaving the room, you wander without direction and end up heading towards Haivan Pass. You walk alone all day and eventually reach the base of the pass, continuing to climb up. On that day, it was drizzling and very cold outside. It's unclear if you brought any belongings, as you didn't mention it. Upon reaching the middle of the pass, you notice many shops, eateries, and even hotels. Despite being hungry, thirsty, and cold, you hesitate to enter these places for fear they might be ghostly illusions rather than real establishments. Remembering ghost stories about Haivan Pass, you avoid entering and continue walking, chanting Namo Amitabha Buddha, while imagining the image of Guan Yin Bodhisattva, not Buddha Shakyamuni. Although you claim not to think of Guanyin, her image constantly appears in your mind. Walking with closed eyes, you occasionally open them to see where you're going. Your mind is empty, and because you often walk with closed eyes, you narrowly avoid being hit by vehicles as drivers honk loudly at you for straying into their lanes. Unconsciously, you keep walking along the path until you see a large bus parked by the roadside. Passengers are standing outside, seemingly having stepped out for a break. As you approach, they beckon you and offer to take you home, surprised to see you alone. This surprises you, as you're high up the pass, and it's unusual for a bus to pick up passengers here. Moreover, it's raining, yet these people are standing outside without raincoats, their faces pale and cold. You also notice the bus is heading towards Hue, not Da Nang, contradicting their offer to take you back to Da Nang. Realizing the bus looks old and eerie, you decide not to approach or board it. Instead, you close your eyes, continue chanting, and walk on. After a few steps, you urinate, smear on your face, and suddenly, the bus and people vanish, revealing a skeleton beckoning you. Terrified, you close your eyes, chant, and run without looking back. Continuing, you reach a section where a pipe runs across the road, with a small pond on the right. As you pass, you hear splashing sounds as if people are wading in the water, though you see nothing. Goosebumps cover your skin, and despite being in a trance, you're scared and keep moving. Eventually, you reach an area devoid of trees, resembling a plain with only grass. Though you see nothing, you smell a faint fragrance like milk flowers, a scent familiar to those from Hanoi. You wonder why you smell milk flowers here, as there are none around, yet the scent lingers like a row of blooming trees. You continue walking onward. Walking a bit further, you notice on your right-hand side a slope leading upwards. At the top, there's a small temple. Since it's nighttime, the temple appears closed, with all the lights turned off, shrouded in darkness. You feel a desire to enter the temple to seek shelter for the night, but fear grips you, fear of ghosts and the unknown. You decide not to enter and continue your journey. As you proceed a little further, you come across a lively area filled with numerous eateries on both sides of the road. These restaurants advertise dishes like free-range chicken and mountain goat. Adjacent to these eateries are inns and hotels, bustling with activity. Despite the lively atmosphere, you feel strangely disconnected from this world. A thought crosses your mind. How could there be so many houses clustered together in the middle of a mountain pass? You wrestle with the decision of whether to stop and ask for food to ease your hunger or to keep moving. Something tells you these houses aren't ordinary residences. Ultimately, you decide to stay alert and avoid the area, continuing your journey while chanting prayers to calm yourself. You briefly consider turning back, but realize you're already too far along the mountain pass, leaving you no choice but to move forward. As you pass the cluster of houses, you suddenly hear fierce barking. A white dog leaps into the road, startling you so much that you feel faint. The dog looks peculiar. Its coat is pure white, almost albino-like. As it barks at you, another identical white dog emerges and joins in. Terrified, you freeze, but after a short while, the dogs stop barking and retreat into the dense vegetation, disappearing from sight. You resume your journey, chanting prayers to steady your nerves. After walking for a while, you come across a large house. It has a tin roof and resembles a workshop, possibly for steel or iron production. In front of the house, you see a man lying in a hammock, seemingly asleep. Relieved to see another human being, you approach the house, your thirst overwhelming you. You decide to wake the man to ask for a drink of water. The man, appearing to be in his 40s or 50s, wakes up and kindly offers you a cup of tea. You drink it in one gulp and ask for another. While drinking, the two white dogs from earlier reappear and start barking at you again. Frightened, you retreat into the house but don't dare ask the man about the dogs. Unexpectedly, the man asks if you're trying to catch a bus to return home. Before you can respond, he advises you to head toward the Haivan Tunnel, where you'll find transportation. You sit down to rest and begin chanting prayers. As you close your eyes, you enter a dreamlike state, not fully asleep, but not entirely awake either. In this state, you see yourself as a monk standing outside a temple gate. You watch people inside, listening to a sermon. The figure delivering the sermon, whom you perceive as Buddha, is only visible from the shoulders up, with the face obscured. The hall is filled with devotees, but you cannot enter. The vision fades quickly, and the scene shifts to your family home. In the center of the house, there's a coffin, and inside it lies your own body. It's your funeral. Family and relatives surround the coffin, mourning your death. You try to speak to them, asking why you're dead and lying in the coffin, but no one hears you. You feel like a wandering spirit, observing the scene from the outside. Suddenly, a female voice whispers in your ear, "Wait until morning, then turn back." That's all she says. You wake up abruptly and realize you must have dozed off while chanting. Deciding to wait for daylight, you stay awake, staring at the sky. Time drags on, and the night feels endless. In the stillness, you hear countless indistinct voices overlapping, urging you to turn back. The cacophony is unsettling, with no single voice clear enough to understand fully. Finally, dawn breaks. Remembering the woman's words, you decide to follow her advice and head back to where you started, abandoning the idea of continuing forward. As you retrace your steps, you pass by the house where you met the man in the hammock the previous night. To your surprise, the house now looks abandoned and dilapidated. The man, the hammock, and the two white dogs are nowhere to be seen. The house appears far more desolate than it did the night before, with its doors shut tight. Spider webs here look very ancient, not like yesterday when you walked a bit further. That stretch yesterday was filled with numerous shops and inns lined up closely together. Now, you notice clearly that this part has no houses anymore. On both sides of the road, there are only abandoned shrines. You know, those roadside shrines for wandering spirits. There were many white horse statues placed there, and you saw a lot of such shrines. At that moment, you were extremely scared and just wanted to get out of this pass as quickly as possible. You continued walking and paid close attention to the location of the darkened temple you passed yesterday. However, when you reached that spot again, the temple was no longer there. There was no temple at all, nor any path leading to it. It was as if it had disappeared. At that point, you realized what was happening. Slowly, you descended to the foot of the pass. As you got closer to the bottom, you saw a large statue of the goddess of mercy, Kuan Am. You knelt there, thanking her for guiding and illuminating your way to safety. However, after reaching the foot of the pass, you didn't return home or to the city. You wandered around there for several days. To eat, you picked wild sim leaves and gathered offerings left at the roadside shrines to stave off hunger. At night, you crawled into construction site drainage pipes to sleep. After about 2 to 3 days, you encountered 2 policemen from your hometown in Nayan. They checked your papers, asked about your background, and eventually took you to the station. In the end, they arranged for you to be taken to the Da Nang Mental Hospital. By the time you were transferred there, the police had already contacted your family. After staying at the Da Nang Mental Hospital for a while, you were transferred to the Nay and Mental Hospital in your hometown. However, there was no sign of improvement, so your family decided to request your release. At that time, a relative took you to a temple in Nayan, where the head nun and other monks kindly helped you. They guided you to recite mantras and prayers for 15 days. Gradually, you regained awareness and control over yourself, understanding what you were doing. After about 3 months, you fully recovered. However, due to greed and worldly desires, you left the temple to find a job, even though the head nun advised you to stay for at least a year for complete recovery. You also share that during your time at the temple, the head nun once guided you to a room dedicated to the worship of Bodhidharma. She asked you to bow to the Bodhidharma altar. While doing so, you noticed a room next door that was dedicated to the spirits of the deceased, where families had sent their departed loved ones' photos for prayers. After bowing, you glanced at the spirit room and saw a photo of a very beautiful young woman. You stared at her photo, thinking how tragic it was for someone so young and beautiful to have passed away. That night, You dreamt vividly of the woman. She took you to many places, and as you were about to wake up, she kissed you on the cheek. Your mother, who was sleeping nearby, noticed you laughing in your sleep and asked what had happened. You told her about the dream, and she shared it with the head nun. Upon hearing this, the head nun picked some leaves, you didn't know what kind, and instructed your mother to boil them into a bath for you to use for 3 days and nights. After following her advice, you no longer saw the young woman in your dreams. From this incident, the head nun strictly warned you never to enter the spirit room alone or stare at the photos, and especially not to judge anyone. She also advised you to avoid areas like bamboo groves or secluded spots in the temple, as many spirits linger there and might attach themselves to you. Despite the head nun's advice to stay at the temple for a year, you left after just 3 months. Although your life stabilized and you no longer lived recklessly as before, you missed the opportunity for complete spiritual recovery. The second story involves a house where 2 people had passed away. A young woman shared that when she was younger, her family lived with her paternal grandparents in a 3-story house. The grandparents lived on the ground floor, her family on the second, and the 3rd floor was used for storage and left unoccupied. Later, her mother revealed that her great-grandmother and grandfather had both passed away on the 3rd floor. Her grandfather died there when she was only 1 to 2 years old. By the time she was 5 to 6 years old and sleeping on the 2nd floor with her parents, she frequently felt someone pulling her legs at night. This scissor story is about someone who, despite being only 5 or 6 years old, experienced terrifying memories that remain vivid even now. Each night, while sleeping next to their parents, their bed was only about 2 meters away from the bathroom. Every few nights, as they slept, someone would grab their legs and drag them all the way to the bathroom door. At that time, the room was dark, and they couldn't see who was pulling them. However, they could feel it clearly, waking up to find themselves lying in front of the bathroom door, drenched in sweat. Frightened, they would return to their sleeping spot, clutching their blanket tightly. Initially, they didn't dare tell their parents, but after the 4th incident, they finally saw the face of the person pulling them. This time, the figure didn't drag them into the bathroom, but instead pulled them from the 2nd floor, up the stairs, and all the way to the 3rd floor. Thanks to the light outside, they could clearly see the terrifying face of this person. The figure's mouth stretched unnaturally wide, reaching their ears. Even without smiling, they wondered how much wider it could go if it smiled. The figure's eyes were horrifying, with tiny black pupils like peppercorns and overwhelmingly white sclera. As the person dragged them to the staircase, they screamed for their parents, but no one heard. They tried to hold on to the figure, but it continued pulling them to the 3rd floor. Once there, the figure laid them down and spoke, "I find you suitable for me, so I'm pulling you up here." After saying this, the figure used its hands to choke them, revealing 4 sharp fangs, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. As the figure tightened its grip on their neck, everything went dark. Moments later, they regained consciousness and saw their younger sister asking why they had been acting strange while sleeping. Their house had wooden stairs, so footsteps could always be heard. One night, they saw an old woman slowly approaching them. As the woman got closer, their ears began to ring painfully. The old lady sat beside them, and they couldn't move. She gently stroked their hair, but her hand felt as cold as ice. Remembering their mother's advice, they began chanting prayers. As they did, the old woman brushed their hair aside, stood up, and walked back up to the 3rd floor. After the old woman disappeared, they stopped chanting, but moments later, the woman returned, sneaking down the stairs. Terrified, they nudged their mother awake. The old woman then turned back and disappeared again. The next morning, they told their mother everything. Their mother decided it was time to move out of their grandparents' house. The family rented a place in District 7. For the first week in the new home, nothing happened. However, during the 2nd week, while the family of 4 was sleeping near the bathroom, they woke up to a horrifying sight. On top of each family member's head, there was a figure squatting. Even on their own head, someone was sitting. When they looked up, the figure above them stared back and whispered, "If you scream, I'll kill your entire family." Terrified, they stayed silent and observed. The figures on their parents' and siblings' heads had long, sharp nails and were scratching and clawing at their faces as if digging into the ground. They saw blood running down their mother's face. Unable to bear it, they screamed and cried. The figures then slowly retreated into the bathroom and vanished. When their mother woke up, her face appeared normal. She asked what had happened, and they tearfully recounted everything. The next day, they and their mother went to a temple. After praying, a monk noticed their pale face and asked what was wrong. They explained everything, and their mother shared more details with the monk. The monk inquired about their birth date and gave them a prayer bead bracelet to wear for protection. From that day on, they always wore the bracelet for the next 10 years. During those years, the family faced some hardships, and their grandmother eventually sold the old house and bought a new one. Nyabe. District 7. After that, your family moved to live with your paternal grandmother. In the new house, something unlucky happened. That day, your younger sister was playing around and accidentally broke a necklace. At first, you thought it was no big deal. However, that very night, as you were lying in bed scrolling through your phone before sleeping, even though the door to your room wasn't closed, you had your back turned to the wall. You suddenly felt as if someone was standing at the door, sneaking a look at you as you used your phone. The door was broken and couldn't close properly, so you turned toward the door and saw someone running very quickly, straight down to the kitchen. You chased after them, trying to see who it was, but found no one. Everyone in the house had already gone to bed, so you decided to let it go and return to your room. That night, you tried to sleep early. Since childhood, you've had experiences of being pulled by the legs during sleep many times, so by now, you've grown used to it and no longer feel scared like before. Later, you went to a temple to request a new necklace. Ever since you started wearing the new necklace, you've been completely at peace and haven't encountered any strange phenomena like before. To this day, you still don't know who that old woman was. You've wondered if she might have been your great-grandmother or just some wandering spirits residing in the house. And with that, our story for today comes to an end. Before finishing, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel to support Duway. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to leave a comment below for everyone to see. Now, let's look forward to more amazing stories in the future. Goodbye, everyone.